Hello everybody, Richard here again, keeping the story rolling on for as long as I can, so let's get back into it. Come with me to the city of stories and sit in the shade of that wall, and there he is, he's coming, the storyteller, and he's wearing a sou'wester and an oilskin coat. Looks like he's getting ready to go on a sea trip or something like that. But he sits down and he says, you know, the ocean was very choppy in that story. The storm clouds were racing across the sky and the waves were white, scudding. And in the middle of the ocean, there was that island. And in the middle of that island, there was a little hut. And inside that hut, there was a woman with a loom, weaving on and on, click, clack, click, clack. But she stopped weaving. And the princess, and the cat, and the ash boy were gazing at her. And the ash boy had just pulled 2 shoes out of his pocket, 2 golden shoes, and he said that he'd found them in the desert. And the princess said, wait a moment, those are my shoes. And at that, the woman looked up and gazed at her, and then looked down again. And again she said, who are you? Those are my shoes, said the princess. I lost them in the desert. It was so hard. I was walking through the sand and must have lost them sometime, because when I came to the cave with the library in, I was barefoot and I went all the way down the steps and by the river, and we went through that forest. Do you remember? And then that animal, that gigantic owl chased us. You remember that? And suddenly the woman had jumped up and she was holding the shuttle of the loom, and she swiped at them and she struck at them and they jumped back, and she said, get away from me. Are you visions? Are you spirits? Are you dreams? Don't torture me. And the cat said, well, I mean, really, this is just a story. It's just a story. But the princess and the woman were gazing at each other now. And they stared at each other for a long time. And then the woman sat down again. She folded her hands and she bowed her head. She said, long time ago, I was married to a king, and we lived in a great castle close to the desert. We had a child, a daughter. And on her first birthday, the king, my husband, told me that he would reveal a secret, a magic spell, and he whispered it to me. He said in the middle of the desert there was a rock, and inside that rock there was all the knowledge in the world. I thought about that for a long time as I rocked my daughter's cradle. And then I wove her a pair of shoes. I sewed them myself. Shoes that she could wear when she was older. And I placed them next to her cradle. And then, said the woman, I went walking through that desert. I found that rock. I whispered that spell. And the library inside, the knowledge inside. And then I found some steps and I went down those steps and I followed a river and it was dark. And then Then a bird came out of the sky, a giant bird that picked me up in its talons, and I fought it, but it threw me up into the air, and I was fighting it, and it carried me, and then it dropped me, and I fell into an ocean, and I swam for my life. It was cold, said the woman, it was cold. And when I thought I was going to drown, I found an island. It's this island. I've lived here ever since. There's everything I need here. There's everything I need here, she said. And then she looked at the princess. And she said, "You know that spell too, don't you? Are you real? Take my hand." She took the princess's hand. She squeezed it. She said, "Please, whisper that spell to me." And the princess leant low to whisper into the woman's ear. She stepped back. And the princess said, "How could I believe all this? In the middle of nowhere, you're living on this island and you tell me this story. How can I believe you?" And the woman said, "Those shoes. When I made those shoes, I stitched them, and I stitched into them the magic spell. Look." And the princess took those shoes and, bringing them close, she examined them. Beautiful, woven, stitched with gold, gleaming now, never old. They fitted her so well. And on each shoe, hidden but quite distinct, she read the magic spell. She turned and looked at the woman, and the woman said, "You are my daughter. I have waited for you for a long, long time." And the princess said, "But you abandoned me. You abandoned me. You left me." The woman said, "Oh, magnetic power of knowledge is strong. You know that yourself. Admit it, you know that yourself." And they gazed at each other. They gazed at each other. And then the ash boy said, "Wait a moment. If those are your shoes, then listen to my story. I have spent all my life living in kitchens downstairs, while you were living in the same castle upstairs. And when you vanished, your father, the king, made an announcement. He said that whoever found you would have half his kingdom. So they all scattered, everybody, everywhere, and they left me just lying in the ash of the fire, until I got up and walked as well. And I walked through the desert, and I found those shoes. And one thing happened, and another thing happened. And now I'm here in the middle of nowhere, on an island in the middle of an ocean, and it's all your fault. You got me here, so you have to get me back. And the cat said, that, of course, I mean, I know we're in a slight spot of bother, but I'm sure we can find a way back. I'm sure we can. And they looked at each other doubtfully. And then they heard a voice. It was a little voice, but a strong voice. And it said, if I might be so bold, I have some suggestions. And from out of the princess's pocket there poked a little mouse. Yes, said the storyteller, it's good to make suggestions. It's better to have a plan. It's better, best of all, when the plan actually works. But if you meet me here tomorrow, I'll tell you what that mouse said. And I'll do the same. So if you meet me here tomorrow, I'll tell you how they get off that island. Until then, goodbye.